so that I can still see myself. So I'm going to share this and then focus on what it is I need to be doing here. So I don't know where I've reached. But with Christ in the vessel, I can smile at the storm despite all that's happening. And my goal is to save my family, especially my young 3-year-old grandson who is not talking and actually hearing where um, my son is saying his mother is to take him to School of Hope because he has no money to pay the school fees. And knowing that when he was going to school and the teacher said I should keep him at home because he is not talking, I actually said to the teachers, no, he's gonna be coming to school. Yeah. And to hear him now saying my grandson should be sent to school because he has no money. Because my son has basically allowed himself to be used politics and religion. So I am going to go to the place where politics and religion is responsible for where I am now with my family and my upbringing, talking about swearing and blaming God. So I'm going to close this now and focus. So I've taken out another account at you TikTok, but because this microphone is not working, I don't know what I can do from there. So I'll have to wait until if I can have it sorted, and then the other laptops are in the shop, and then the mouse is not working, and then it's like another thing. So all right, I'm gonna go here to live in Jamaica. So I have been in relationships, yeah. My first relationship was with the boy who took me under his wing when my father was sick. Puberty, father sick, didn't know what was happening. So this boy, I grew my height by the time I was 12, like my big son did. The little one, they call him Webster. That's another story. I grew my height by the time I was 12 years old. I had all the attributes for a woman. But when I reached puberty, my mom said, don't let any man touch you. I didn't associate mom saying, don't let any man touch you with sex per se. I didn't know much about sex. Although I grew up in a close home or whatever, my mom had a child. When I didn't know how that child came about. I didn't know anything. Age 7 when my brother was born, I didn't know anything. Yeah. So when I reached puberty and my mom said, don't let any man touch you, or boy, or whatever, I just naturally thought it's physical touch. The only thing I know about period is like my nephew's sister started having period. So I don't know if it started at school, but she came to school and there was blood and there was talk about period. And that was all I knew. She was younger than me. Me, I started having period after I got a beating from my mother. So naturally, I thought the blood was because of I'd got a cut or something. When I started seeing period, my mother gave me a string to tie around my waist, two pins, and a napkin. And I had to take. I hated my life, if you know what I mean. I didn't have a normal life like a girl. I had none of that. See how my skin is lax. I am going to high film school and I wasn't wearing brassiere. It was my brother who told my mom to buy brassiere for me. So he didn't grow up with us. He grew up in town with his well-to-do family. So he thought I maybe know those things. He has girlfriend. He was older than me. So I remember it was Texas who told my mom to buy brassiere. So the boy who took me under his wing, he was my, would you say, first love. I'd had a sexual experience before and I didn't like it because the bloke gave me a pill and I don't know if that it was my mind again or what, but somehow I felt sick. So I'd actually had the experience, the sexual experience, and it was before, probably before I started having period. It was my brother's friend, he didn't rape me, but after the sexual experience, he gave me a pill. I'm sure he gave me a pill. And then after the sex, I was sick, probably for a whole day or more. It was during that time of transitioning from primary school to secondary school. Because we had age out, me and Joy, we did not do common entrance to go to high school. So Miss Welch let us do G, GC, J, Jamaica School Certificate, JSC. So that's how I passed Bible knowledge with credit. I took two subjects. So I think I took civics and Bible knowledge, and I passed both Bible knowledge with credit. I didn't pass the other one based on my father's teaching because my father had a Bible with pictures. That's why I use pictures to tell stories. And then I went to room. But during the time when I should be going to preparing to go to from secondary school to from primary school to secondary school, my mom left me. So basically, my mom would have left me in charge of cooking everything at the age of 13. I started cooking from an early age for everybody because my mother said, came from bush one day and asked for her dinner and said she left a coconut and some butter. So I just started turning, turn my hand make fashion, as Miss Lou said. So when my mother left me, I'm supposed to be going to primary, secondary school. So the preparation should be in place. But my mother and my grandmother had gone, the two other women had gone to town and left me. And that's how probably if my mom was around when my brother's friend came, I wouldn't have had my first sexual encounter. I don't know. So my mom wasn't around when I had my first sexual encounter. I was supposed to be preparing for secondary school, and it was nobody was there. Sense of whatever having to whatever. I remember because per usual I can sew or do handwork from basic times. So I would go to Miss Nita, John's mother. She was a dressmaker, so that's where I started learning to handmade. But I am from a background of tailoring and dressmaking, so my mom could do her own thing. And I remember the last uniform I wear to film school. I was talking to Vi, and Vi said I gave it to her. So Miss Joyce, because season time, these times, dressmakers, especially the popular ones, are full. So you have to put in your things early with anything in advance. So Miss Joyce was so full. So what she did was actually cut the uniform, cut it, and I put it in place and sew my uniform because it's matching so I can help myself. So even the day I was going to school, everything wasn't ready. My brother had gone ahead of me to go to Miss Vida to get the belt buckle, and then it wasn't even done because it has to be sewn down. So I was in a bit of a ray. I remember wearing an old socks that was washed out. So I got her shoes, but mom wasn't there. So it was on old socks because mom was coming back from town with stuff of school, but she was delayed. She didn't come back before school. So I am cooking for everybody. Byron bring his friends. So can you imagine a stranger in the place? I am the one responsible for preparing meal. Don't know how I ended up in bed with him, but I was in bed with him. He didn't rape me. But the experience of having sex for the first time wasn't what I expected. So I guess that was what delayed. And the young man who took me under his wing, he was the one who told me about the birds and the bees. Mom wasn't able to. And we were not rushing sex. That wasn't what our relationship was built on. He liked me. I used to go over to Miss T, my brother's girlfriend. He would stay down at his yard, see when I'm passing, and then he would try come talking to me. But because of what my mom had told me, I actually would run until he catch up with me and I told him whatever. And he was saying, this can't happen, this can't happen. And then that's how he explained about the birds and the bees. So he started coming to my yard with his books to study. He's that intellectual person. So there was no sex happening up to the time when my father came home from work and saw us together in the yard. And then my father talked to my mother and my mother talked to me. But at that time, there was no sex. It was much later on that we actually indulged in sex. But then after, I think I might have had sex with him before somebody tried to rape me. And I went and I told the bloke's father because I'm this type of a person. Because I grew up with men. I just love the company of men. I trust men more than women. And I always said, all a man can do is beg me wife. And if I'm not giving in, if I decided not to give it to him, it's hell for him to get wife from me. And people tried. Men have tried. I've been in a situation where I have to fight. Well, I'm that type of a person. I don't only fight verbally, I fight physically if I'm not into something. I'll tell you more about them who attempt to. So growing up, it wasn't easy for me. I grew up in a village that raised this child. And as a result, that's how I get the support. But my home environment wasn't, some people are saying about abuse. There was no abuse in terms of in my head what my mother did to me, chastise me wasn't abuse. But some other things now, looking at it and knowing what it is, it could be classic come under thing, but mom wasn't doing it deliberately. Yeah. So like when my brother beat me up and mom said he has place there so I can go. And she passed and did not come and see me and my sons can be classed as abuse now. Back then I didn't know it. But I will not take the beatings as abuse. You might say it is, but for me it wasn't. There are other one. So because of certain things that happened, I began to resent my mother. I don't know if I resented my mother more than my granny. She had a way about her. She used old time phrase to address the situation because she too didn't know how. She would like chicken I go big you see it from him foot. Yeah. Mom would be more mom use phrases to like now make me spit a ground and it dry before you come back so you know that is an order. Don't disobey. And if I disobey, you know that I'm gonna get a beating. But I guess that's where I developed my stubbornness from by my granny because my granny would be like say things. I catch up on eyelash if they blink, I drop off. Chicken I go big you see it from him foot. And if you prepare food and you say, gang, gang, you want some? My granny would say, don't ask me if I want it. Give it to me because you're asking me because you don't want to give it to me. So those are some of the things, people, that I grew up with. My father loved me. I guess I was spoiled in so many ways. But my father beat me one time for curse bad word. So after I feel that my father, God failed us. I guess some of the resentment with all that I told you happened to me. I was teased mercilessly for this broad nose. I was teased mercilessly because I was thin. I understand my hair was cut off by somebody with good intention because they thought I was thin because I have this long hair and it was sucking me. Yeah? My granny would plait my hair down in my hair like this. So it's not back way like the others or sideways. Because my granny said she's not plaiting down my brain. And I get to school and I'd be teased mercilessly. So I now started learning to plait my hair. So by the time my granny plait it and put it down in my face, I would have to lose out that one. So I have to meet up like the other girls. But I was never the other girls. I get hand-me-downs. But sometimes they were big and there was no alteration to make it fit properly. So I lived with all of that. I grew up hearing my mother defending herself. I've never seen my mother in a fight or anything like that. But I've heard my mother verbally. From before we moved to our own land, my mother would be like having quarrels with the neighbors. I didn't understand it much because I moved to where we buy our own land by the time I was 5. But I remember those tracing, they call it tracing. And my mother would put up a stick and put a chimney on it and all those sort of things. Those are the things I grew up with. And then when we moved to our own land, it reached the stage where I'm sure at some stage, my mother and the neighbors had actually gone to court. This neighbor, who my brother was married to one of the daughter, I think it reached a stage where my parents and the neighbor had gone to court. Yes. And I remember when my brother was getting married, I thought it was Christmas. It was sometime or other, but I learned years later that it was actually Boxing Day. And I remember to this day there was some disagreement because my brother went and behind my parents' back and got married. So that brought another disagreement. My brother later told me that it was because my mother wanted him to marry another of his baby mother and not the lady, the one he married. That's why I never intervened. When my son got married, he got out of bed. So that's what I'm telling you. He got out of bed with his brother. So even when I left here, my sons were sleeping in the same bed together. And my son got out of bed and went and got married. Nobody in my family knew. My sister-in-law actually saw them at Choro, at Tollgate, but didn't know what was happening till it all came out. So basically, my son was forced into a marriage from the time he was with the young lady, from the time they were 17. Both were 17. They were born August 5th and August 9th. And this young lady's mother was the one who targeted me when I was going out with his sister. I didn't know when I got involved with my son's father that he was going out. But those are what you call wild men. She would come to the side of the road on top of there and started cursing me and telling me how not she should fuck me in my broad nose. Those are the things I grew up with. Until my brother, Daston, the same Daston who caused me to have a bad back, but that was later, went and have words with her. So I've been through the mills. My first love and I broke up because, so yes, he took me under his wings. We had a relationship. First, just a friendly boy-girl relationship. Then it is like sexual relationship. And I love him to death. And I think he loved me to death. But yet he had other partners. Boys were like that and you expect it. The only persons who weren't like that was my father and my first son until his wife did what she did. So my son's father and I were an item, but he had other girlfriends before me, one of whom was the sister of the boy who tried to rape me. I remembered he went in the army and he started writing. And that's how I started getting my first letters. So the letter would come to school. Somebody would go to the post office, collect the letter, come to my class, and handed me the letter. So that was the norm. Until I wasn't going to school anymore. I don't know if I was still getting letters or I would wait on the visits. I waited. So my son's father would come. We'd have a good time. I have other friends. There was Light Mercy because I nearly had sex with him. It never happened. The one chance we get to have sex with Light Mercy, somebody saw us going somewhere, so that put tension, and we never had sex. Lied Mercy and I never had sex. But whenever he comes home, he would spend time at my house, we'd play music, have a good time, and that was it. Before he went in the army, he used to come to my house. And my mom used to throw water at him because my mom said, me and him not in the same category. My mom was, because my mom's family came from a certain status and my grandfather walked away. My mom had this high status, but she didn't want us to, what they said, shit in a higher grass than your body. So because this boy's family was well to do in the community, the Mercy, my mom said no. So whenever he comes to see me, my mom would show water at him. So we never had that type of a relationship. And the one time we were gonna have sex, somebody saw us when we turned up, so it didn't happen. So I never had sex with Lauren Mercy, but that friendship remained, and it remained until we got back here. I found his phone number, I contacted him, and Lloyd Mercy was one of those who took my money. So yes, look out for these people. I'm here to tell story to help people understand. Don't fall in the traps that I have fallen into. Right. So I raised my two sons. So yes, pregnancy. I got pregnant. No, because I told the young man's mother what had happened. Her son was trying to do to me. And then nobody believed me. Michael was going out with lead. Then they sent and told Michael what had happened. Michael came home. Michael didn't come and look for me. So in my head now I'm thinking, okay, Michael must does not believe me either. So then now the split came naturally, and then that's how I ended up. Okay. I'm trying to put things in, it's on there already, but I'm trying to save myself and put a story out there so others can learn. I don't know if I think now. I want people to be aware. The same way how I had sex the first time, and I said it wasn't rape, but my mother wasn't around, my granny wasn't around, and a young man came. Yes, my father was around, but I don't think that would have been much of a deterrent. So I'm sure if my mother was around or even my granny, but the two of them had gone and left a young girl in charge, and a fellow came, and I guess it's natural if that fellow find me attractive that it would happen normally that we had sex. So as I said, that fellow never raped me, but my experience wasn't the best. So that put me off sex for a while. If when Michael K heard about whatever allegations, that's why I'm saying allegation rules. So if he had heard that I had lied on somebody tried to rape me. Yes, we were sexual that time. And he had come and discussed the matter with me so I could clear up, said my file of the soul. The fact that he come and he didn't come to look for me tells me that I'm not worthy. This boy who had taken me on his wings, now I'm not worthy anymore. So I left well enough alone. And I think I'm warning people. People come in your life with good intentions. Everybody who has scammed me, they came in my life and I think they came with good intentions. And I waited and then I get scammed. I'm telling you about, and I'm calling names now because names need to be called. Yeah, I'm not blocked out yet. So, ma'am, remember I told you about the poverty, the disability that affected my life from the time my father was stricken with Parkinson's. So by this time now, my mother is going out to work, take care of my father, my grandmother, whatever things. So now mother was holding down two positions, taking on my father's role as well as her role as a whatever. So there was a lot of burden on me. As soon as I learned the specific, because I remember going to school, having a piece of cloth around you. Nobody told you what to do that. Okay, take extra so you can change. Nobody told me anything. So actually messing up the chairs at school, messing on the blood on the chair at school from whatever. And all those things. I grew up with those things. Until I learned about getting my own pad. So I started buying my own pad from once I realized things. The same way like trousers. My father said I cannot wear trousers with the money that coming from the money. So I have to wait until I can buy my own material for my brother to sew trousers. So my mother was working. This man was coming to our house. So it started off, okay, nice man. But people beware of who is coming to your house. They come with good intentions, but there are ulterior motives. This man was coming to my house. In the beginning, there was no thought of on my part, but then that's how the coercion came. That's why when I said I trusted this person, so I confided in him because I thought, okay, here is somebody I could confide in, and for this to turn out that way. So this person was my mother's busher. I started coming to her house, and the little gesture of kindness, he would ask me questions. Remember, I said I was mature. From the age of 12, I was mature. And then the kindness, he bought me a pair of shoes. And then maybe him buying me a pair of shoes, I think when he put sex to me now, he was entitled to have sex from me. For remember now, I was having sex with Michael. And now me and Michael not together again. So I didn't owe Michael any loyalty. And he was kind to me, so he would be talking to me, showing me attention, bought me a pair of shoes, and then this led to sex. Sex didn't happen in our yard. He had a house because he's a busher, so he had a company house, and that's where he took me, where we had sex. Yes. Be wary of. First time you would say you're girls, but it's not only girls, it can happen to boys. Yes? It was my brother because I was comfortable having sex with this man, but he didn't tell me his story because maybe if he had told me he was married, the taboos, my Christian upbringing. Remember, I said I passed Bible knowledge with credit before I went to secondary school. And my father was a one-man woman. So the principles of marriage was there, laid out. That's why I was aggrieved when I have two children and a man is going to tell me I must have a child for him and then he'll marry me. It was my brother, Dustin, who actually, because Dustin must have known what was going on with his sister and this man. So my brother went to take measurement. My brother is a tailor for this man's wife. And then that's when my brother said to him, the man is married. And me being me, raised the way I am raised, I couldn't be in a relationship with another man. But by this time, somebody else had the eyes on me. There are other people, don't get me wrong. There are other boys who had the eyes on me, like Mercy. But once I am not interested in that relationship with you, it's not going to happen. I'm like that. So the next person that I was sexually active with and in what I would consider a serious relationship was my first son's father. So he started showing interest, and the way around it was he would wait until he sees one of my brother out in the street, and then he would come and call for that brother, and that was my cue to be with him. But it didn't last long. It wasn't a normal relationship in that we were friends for long or anything. Yeah, I am telling you my whole life story so you understand. It wasn't a normal relationship that, or I'm telling you the major relevant parts. Because I remember I had sex with this young man, and we never lie in a bed and have sex. We would stand up and have sex, if that makes sense. And when I count how many times I had sex with that young man before I got pregnant, I don't think I finished this hand. Yeah, and from the outset I got pregnant. My body changed. I wasn't sure. I spoke to the young man. Mr. Spence was still coming to our house, but I wasn't sexually engaged with him anymore. So it was just another support for my family with my father and my granny being sick. So we'd finished with the sex. So when I got pregnant, it was the married man, who told my mother that I was pregnant. Yeah, I was no longer involved with my first love. But when I got pregnant and I was in confusion, it was my first love who actually consoled me. I remember him saying that if anything, I should go over to his yard. And when I told him who got me pregnant, he said, "Oh, that's why." Nachi said to him if he didn't know him, he would take his bike and bounce him. So he had seen us together and the old green-eyed monster. Yes? So I'm like trying to tell my story so people understand. From I got pregnant, it's like my body changed. This the spitting started. And that spitting lasted up until I had my son. The vomiting started after two. So I started going back to school. So I got pregnant over the holiday period because I used to go to my uncle in Clarendon. The one had Parkinson's like my dad, Uncle Gridley. And I had all these uncles in Clarendon, so I know, but primarily Uncle Gridley. And once I told my son's father that I always wanted a boy. I don't know why. Maybe because I grew up with boy and I think I could cope with boy. Anyway, once I told my son's father, the decision was made. He said I should have the abortion. I wasn't the one who He was the one who bring it up. He said to me I should have the abortion. I was by this time I was friends with Miss C from her mother brought her to our house to say that she was pregnant for Byron. I was friends with her. She was pregnant at the same time. So her daughter, Jillian, was born in July. My son was born in August. So it was like Miss C who was like my confidant. So I think I went to Dr. Whitelock first, but I don't know if because my son's father advised me to get an abortion. I went to my son, Dr. Whitelock, but I don't think he did it. But so we ended up at Dr. Campbell. And I'm thinking now, was that how Dr. Campbell became my doctor? Probably. I was taking my, I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway, when I went to Dr. Campbell said to me I should ask the young man to come and speak to him. But when I went back to tell Lloyd about the situation, he said he had to go to cricket and he was going to ask his friend Brian to go with me. And because I know the situation of people chatty, I said if I wasn't valuable enough for my son's father to go with me to speak to the doctor and he's going to send somebody to stand in, then I'm not going to do the abortion because it is better I get a microphone and walk from Townhead Crossroad to Pennsylvania Crossroad and advertise that I was pregnant and I was going to do an abortion. My brother can verify if he wishes because my brother has turned against me because he said Brian told him about it. So that's why I said when the psychiatrist came and I decided that I was going to be confide in him what was bothering me, why maybe certain things could make sense and I couldn't accept certain things. But I'd already discussed it with my son before, some of it, so at least if he decides to say no, it wasn't there, I can go back if my son is willing to say the truth that we had a discussion. Now I decide to have my son. I couldn't go back continue school because I was spitting and I was vomiting, although I have no belly to show. So now I stopped going to school. Throughout that time, my son's father come to see me twice. Right. I had to, so now again, abandonment and rejection have a very detrimental impact on me. I wasn't having my son father wasn't having anything to do with me because probably I didn't do the abortion. I don't know. Now, it's like a curse. You have to understand that anything a person does have an impact. Back then, you're in the church, your daughter get pregnant, your mother is now have to sit at the back bench. They don't christen your child in the front of the congregation. He has to go back in the thingy because you're not married and all that entails. My son wasn't christened at the Baptist church. He was christened at his grandmother's church, the Holiness Church in Sola. So he was christened in the church. But if he was to be christened at the Baptist church, because pastor wasn't there, Reverend McCoy. If he was to be christened at the Baptist church, he would have to go in the back at the back of the church because I wasn't married. And now they said your mom has to stay in the back bench because maybe that was the rule. So I had my son and that was it. I was no longer with, yeah. I had to write a letter to my son's father. And it was Christine, she since died. AIDS. She was here in this country. and asked Christine to post the letter because I was so ashamed. I don't go out. I only go to clinic, and probably I go down to my brother's house because the burden of being pregnant, you don't finish school, and the young man not standing up to his responsibility of having company. I see somewhere there about the Asian killing. So I was basically alone. I'm traumatized. So now I'm home. So yes, when my son's father came to see me after the letter, we had an disagreement, and I bite him up. I used to use my teeth as a weapon, like I bite my first husband. I don't hardly have any teeth, and they so whatever, even food. So yes, we had an disagreement, and I bite him up. And I guess I don't remember if I seen him again after that because now I'm shying away from the road. I go to clinic and I engage at clinic. My son was born on a Monday. Yeah. All right. The family support was, I guess, the best care. For, my family was there for me 24/7. As I said before, they weren't happy that I got pregnant. But by this time, my father was sick, Parkinson's. So my son born 1976. I remember now Papa is sick, Gangang is sick. Mom has to go out to work. Then mom would come in and take care of the caring, that side of caring. But I was there now to prepare food for my granny and my father. Look after a baby and the whole works. And not much support in terms of a partner. He wasn't much of a partner because I can almost swear I never had sex with him more than 5 times before I got pregnant. I remember when my son going to the clinic, the whole works. My water break a few days before my son was born. So I was actually, water was coming out of me. Water. Until I have my son. Taking. So I went to clinic this Friday and my son was born the Monday. Last lead daughter, the sister of the boy who my first love was friendly with, the boy who tried to rape me. So I know Nikki and Kevin were born the 9th of August. I think Nikki was born at home, Kevin born at this. I never had, both my children, I never had no hard time with any of them. And my sons was born. I guess I was kept in a day in the hospital because of the whatever had broken early and I was passing water, but I was sent home. And home was my over by my brother's house in Choro. So I stayed there for a while because dad was sick, mom was burdened down with whatever. So my sister-in-law take on that role. And that was where my son's father came to see us. I remember before that the talk was going around that if my son wasn't his, then I would have to support him myself. But luckily, although there were rumors later on and they gave me hell on Facebook about him being a jacket and it was for the married man, it wasn't the case because I wasn't having sex with that man during the time I got pregnant. The relationship had finished. If I had done any misdemeanor, it's when I went to Clarendon. So I'm giving you hints. So, okay. I wish somebody would help me, but nobody's gonna help me. I have my son to take care of. I'm taking care of my grandmother. I'm taking care of my father. Whilst my mother go out to work. It wasn't easy. I remember sometimes when people are coming, my brothers would help. Mom would be running and saying, Ratty, hurry up because people are coming and this not done and this not done. So that's why I'm a, certain things people are, I have to present a certain persona. I remember my father was such a strength because although he was shaking, I remember those days when I have to do things. So remember now I'm doing the caring, I'm doing the washing, I'm doing the cleaning, I'm doing the cooking, I'm doing everything. But my father would be there for my son and he would be singing and rocking my son so he'd go to sleep or comfort him. But it was like this. So I don't know if that's how I developed the cycle. So I used to literally shake people. And sometimes there was no voice or they said I'm shouting. Yeah. So so my son grew up with this shaking, this shaking, this shaking. But my father was there, still able to. And another thing throughout, my father would get up every morning and go and pick up the leaf from the yard. Pick up the leaf from the yard so we have a clean yard. And I remember mom would put the water in the sun to warm, and my father would go out and in the yard and bathe himself. I remember when my father took sick and every remedy there that mom hear about, mom would try and get it. So around our yard was the pawpaw trees. My chochos are out there and I can't even go out there to read them. But the pawpaw trees were around in the yard because they said it was because my father worked too hard. He wasn't taking care of himself, wasn't eating the whole work. So that's why his nerves was gone. And mom did everything. But then something else happened to me. My son was an active child. I could hear a few words out of my son. And then my son wasn't talking. At the time, they had the Cuban specialists. There are lots of Cuban doctors in Jamaica. So I made the appointment and I went and saw the Cuban doctor. It was a woman. I'm sure it was a black woman, a black Cuban. And I remember sitting my son on my lap, 17-year-old or 18-year-old. And that person was making some sounds, some gestures, and my son just sat on my lap. That's why I always say you can't tell by looking. I'm very astute to certain things because I'm experiencing certain things. Remember, my son. And the decision was made that he's deaf and he's dumb. Not even a second, like how Dennis said, I need a second assessment to realize, to find out what is needed. And my son decided, no, I don't agree with you. Mom needs pills. No second, no the opinion, no nothing. All I heard was, he is deaf and he is dumb. So you need to send him to School of Hope. The only School of Hope I know about at the time was in Kingston. So this is a place for, back then you call handicapped children. Now this lady is telling me my son is deaf and dumb. She didn't even give me time to say, I know he's not deaf. Why he's not speaking, I don't know. She just write him off. My son was written off as being deaf and dumb. I could accept dumb, but I wasn't prepared to accept deaf because I know my son was not deaf. So I came home, and of course, I have to talk. See, I have to talk and tell the world what the outcome was, and then there were more labels added to me. So, on top of being ugly, on top of everything that I was a liar and this and that, now the stigma of having a deaf and dumb son. But I know my son wasn't deaf, possibly dumb. But then my father reassured me and he said, "No, I'm not to worry. It's something that's in our family." Yeah. So I had some reassurance of that. Another thing I'm going to tell you that happened with my son. One day, my son turned blue. My son is high complexion. My son turned blue. Can you imagine me having my son, a teenage mother, and your child turned blue, and you don't know what is happening? I hardly remember some of it. And I didn't even know until a few years ago where I was talking to my brother, Daston, and because I remember going and taking my child to the doctor. But I was a few years ago, I am talking to my brother, Daston, and he said to me, it was my father. When I cried out that my son is dead, it was my father who put the mirror at his face and said to me, "No, he's not dead, he's breathing." I wasn't aware of any of those. The same way I wasn't aware of certain things when Mimi, Owusu, and Lyndon cried. So I remember taking my son to the doctor. I didn't, I wasn't versed about medical issues and DNA. I know certain things, hearing certain things, and seeing certain things, why I didn't have more children because of my DNA, but I wasn't versed. It was only now since studies and whatever, and I went back and I looked because my brother used to be screaming out and walking around the place, just walking around the place and screaming out. And my father would say the fever fly up in his head. So when that happened, and my father, it, well, he must have said it, I didn't hear, but that's not here because it's years later. So my father knew about some of these things. I took my son to the hospital, and that was the only attack my son had. It never happened again. But then later on, when my nephew was born, I'm here, and I'll be hearing that practically every week or every month or every how often they have to rush my nephew to the hospital for seizures or whatever. But my son only had one attack. One attack where he turned blue. It never happened again. It was just a one off. And then I'm going to go into, I didn't finish school. But after I had my child, my class teacher, Mr. Felix Rose, said to me, I should not let, because I have a child, I don't get my education because I'm a bright girl. I always did well at school, even when I was the background person. Even when I could have done better because I had the shakes. I get the shakes, especially exam time under pressure. In my own time, it was okay. So I took, now that my father is dead, 1976, 77, 78, 79, 80. Now that my father is dead, my granny is dead, they died a month apart. I didn't have that responsibility for caring. I only have my son. I took Mr. Rose up on his offer or his advice, and I enrolled at Manning School to do two subjects, English and history. I passed the English. I didn't pass the history. That's where I met Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson was my English teacher. And Mr. Thompson had a child with my niece cousin, Trishan. The girl is called Trishan Tomlinson. So Mr. Thompson. So married school girl and teacher relationship was always in the offering from then. If I was that way inclined, I could have relationship with more than one teachers at my school. Mr. Hines tried it when we went to the beach. It later turned out Mr. Hines is actually my son's wife, natural father. If I was that way inclined, I could have had a relationship with Mr. Henry. Later on, it turned out Mr. Henry had mental health issues. I wasn't that type of a person. And Mr. Lawrence, who had a relationship with everybody, tried it. I never once. Maybe the only person I think I could have an empathy in that way was Mr. Rose, but Mr. Rose never approached me like that. Yes, so it did happen in schools. School girls and teachers were having relationships, and their children to prove it because I think Donovan Lawrence, yeah, I was never that way inclined certain things. I never got indulged in certain things. But then now, that and grand gone, leaves us free time without caring. So all I had was my son. I was actively involved with politics, and that is something I'll discuss another time. I'm trying to tell the story. And then I'm going forward. I want to pick myself up. So I decided that I tried to get work. I work as a domestic helper. That means I live in people's house and take care of their children, take the children to school, wash, cook, iron the whole work. I've done that in Montego Bay, and I've done that in Kingston. And then I'll talk about Jean and in another situation. So now I decided, okay, need to get a career. I went and me, I done some things I regret, and that's why I don't throw out this paper. I started throwing it, and God said, take it back. So I done things in haste. In frustration, I tear up all my examination certificates. They're not all in one because I don't have all my exam in one. I never pass maths. And it's when I come here, I realize I'm dyscalculia. And a couple of years ago, I done a dyslexia training and realized I have all the traits. I can come out through this door and can't find my way in back to the other side. I'm supposed to be walking down this side of the road and I'm walking down that side. That can throw me. Underground can throw me. Lots of things can throw me. If I'm supposed to be going to Jamaica, I have to be there earlier than the normal time just in case I'm panicking on getting there. So I have to plan my life around everything. I'm going for an interview. I have to make sure, whatever. Another thing I do, I used to be here when I was on my own. And that's why it's so hard now being on my own, scared of locking myself out and the whole world. I used to be here and I walk, get ready to go to work. And then I come back and I say, did I turn the cooker off? Or did I turn something? And I come back. And then I have to develop a strategy. Said, no, you have to find out a way that you don't have to keep coming back. Since I've lost orientation, I was going to the GP. They called me to come. So I said I was supposed to go into Peckham to pick up the laptop. So I said, let me just carry everything so he has a check. Because when he checked the laptop, he said there was virus on it. So I said, I done the urine sample. And then I realized I didn't put it in the bag. Then I come back for it and then I go back out and I realize it's raining. And I realized I didn't put the umbrella in the bag. So if I didn't organize my life, that was where I could be going around. And I can reach a point. I remember I went to court And I went to the place, and I'm going back the second time, and I couldn't find it. I had to get a cab to take me to put me there. So those are some of the things I had to deal with. And I think I dealt with them well to make my life whatever. And then here comes. I said, okay. I done population census, I done this, that, that. Been to conference, right, for my brother. And now I said, you know what? I'm going to go to teachers college. So I made the application and some sharp. And then I had to presenting. But by this time frustration had set in. I tear up all my certificates. So I had to send to my son's father. That's the second one, father. But he was my first love, the one who took me under his wing. To go to the ministry to get my certificates. So I went and done. But guess what? By this time, I was pregnant again. And if I was a person who was, as I said, promiscuous and running around having sex with this man and that man, I would know who I got pregnant for. Because when I had sex with my son's father, he'd come. My big son had woken up and come on the veranda. So we were about to do the act. And I had to go and put my son back to bed because he'd come out on the veranda. And put him back to bed, come back out and have sex. So if I had sex with somebody else, I wouldn't know for a fact it was my son's father who got me pregnant. Because I saw him put on a condom. Yes, people. So, okay. My friend Lorette Cranston said if it was she would have an abortion. I put it to my son's father. Remember, I was told the first time it was my son's father. I put it to my son's father, and my son's father said, I don't believe in abortion. But he said he gave me the money to take the photograph for the identity to go do the test. Back then I have my name, Ermin Mervelee. I only name hard. So I had to, it's Ermin. Some things I've since changed by default because I don't want the confusion. My son's father said, because you're not 100% sure that you're pregnant, he would advise me go and do the test. So just in case you're not pregnant. And I went and did the test, but I was pregnant. So that was it. I'm going to leave this one here because I'm not making them too long. I'm recording on the other one over there. So I'm just going to leave it and do them in stages and stages. And make sure that I don't call certain names because I am in the wrong. So I'm ending this one here, pregnancy. Pregnant with Valdin Alan Register. I didn't name him. It was his father. Because I can't do anything else. All I can do is talk. I haven't eaten yesterday. As you can see, it's called survival. So my survival is talking.